story. Let's begin. The water's fine. Come on, dive in. The future's here. It's right before your eyes.
You're listening to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, the community for the best sales and marketing professionals in the aviation industry. Your hosts, John and Paula Williams, are your sales and marketing test pilots. They take the risks for you and share strategies, relevant examples, hacks, and how-tos. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes so you won't miss a thing.
Welcome to Aviation Marketing Hangar Flying, episode number 16, Why You May Not Need More Leads.
Of course.
It's funny because everybody, when we talk about marketing, usually the first thing that people tell us is we need more leads. That's the one problem that we have in our marketing system is, if we only had more leads, all of our problems would be solved. But we're going to tell you about one of our most frustrating marketing puzzles and one of two times that we fired clients. And this actually is one of those things that sometimes happens and we had to learn from in order to really get our system down. So we're going to talk about what happened and what we do now so that will never happen again, right?
Of course.
Of course. Okay, so I'm Paula Williams.
And I am John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
to help all you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more aviation products and services.
Exactly. All right. So for the last 4 episodes of our podcast, we've been talking about phase 1, which is advertising and prospecting, which is very important to do. And today we're going to talk about what went wrong in one of our campaigns or one of our client engagements when things went very badly in phase 1. Which led to some other issues in phase 2 that we're going to be talking about in the next several episodes. So we're just kind of transitioning from phase 1 to phase 2, and this is one of the points at which things tend to blow up if we don't prevent it, right? Okay, so in this situation, we have a marketing system where we're acquiring leads for a client by using search engine optimization, SEO, and other methods, and then people are downloading an ebook. And from that point, then their salesperson is making sales calls because this is a complex product. It's a very high-touch, high-risk product that needs more explanation than can be done on paper. So you can get so far with credibility using electronic and paper materials, but at some point you have to talk to somebody, right?
Yeah, preferably face-to-face, but at least on the phone.
Right, exactly. So when we designed this marketing system with this client, it was actually a really great process. They were really great to work with. They agreed in principle with us that, yes, this is what needs to happen. They had a great sales guy who was a friend of the owner of the company. He knew a lot about the product. He knew a lot about how to respond to questions and answer questions and everything else. He'd been in the business for a really long time. So we thought, okay, well, this guy knows sales. We know marketing. We don't need to get into his stuff. He doesn't need to get into our stuff. We just very neatly throw things over the fence and everything will go just great, right?
Except for one small thing.
Well, right, which we're not going to give away. I know you know the answer, John, but this is supposed to be a suspenseful story, so. Okay.
Well, I'm supposed to have a cup of coffee first.
Exactly. Okay, so now we know the setup. We have everything that we need, we think. Things are going along swimmingly. We set up our system. The search engine optimization is starting to kick in. The social media, we're starting to get more pickups on that. People are actually finding the ebook and they're downloading it, and life is good, right?
Now, what does swimmingly mean?
Swimmingly means good, I think, right? Okay, so 44 people downloaded the ebook in July, and we're thinking we're doing a fantastic job. So we met with this client every month, and we talked about, here's what went well, here's what could go better, and so on. So we got together with them after July, so about the first week of August, and had a meeting, and they had made no more sales than they had the month before, probably 4 or 5 sales. So what's the problem? I mean, we sit there and go through, they said, well, we got all these leads, but they're really no good. And I'm like, okay, well, do we need to make the form that they use, that they fill out when they download the leads, do we need to make that more detailed? We added a couple of questions to that form. We thought, okay, well, you're getting some unqualified leads. That's to be expected. And, so we made it a little bit harder to get the ebook. No problem. Continued our search engine optimization, continued our social media, continued the other things that we were doing. We also did some postcards and other things. So we upped our game in marketing and got 57 ebooks downloaded in August.
As far as we know, they're qualified leads.
Yeah. And, still 4 or 5 sales in August. So, the next month we had the same meeting, pretty much the same thing happened. And we, just assumed that everything was going swimmingly. We already talked about what swimmingly means on the other side of the fence. And so we're just feeding in leads and finding out that nothing is happening. Nothing more is happening than there was before. All right. So we upped our game some more. We're working our butts off at this point, right? And doing a whole bunch of new articles and everything else, doing a lot of work on the end of getting people to this ebook and selling this ebook. So 92 people downloaded this ebook in September. Met with them the first week of October, and still 4 or 5 sales. So we came down to it and we said, okay, well, let's really dive into this. And the fact that this had not occurred to me before this really shows my assumption that everybody in the organization is doing their job. And of course, I also didn't want to upset the apple cart because the person who was supposedly doing the sales calls was also a friend of the owner. There are lots of things going on here. He was somebody that I really respected, had talked to quite a bit, and, thought that this was something that he knew. I sure as heck didn't want to tell him how to do his job, But as it turned out, he wasn't making any of the calls. And the way that we drilled down to this was like, okay, well, let's talk about some of these leads. Let's break down 10 of these leads that we can just call and find out what happened, so that I can call them and find out, was it something in the ebook? Was it just not interested in the program, but wanted the ebook for some other reason? What's the reason for this? So give me 10 leads that you talk to, that I can follow up with. And he said, well, I really can't do that. And I'm like, okay, well, can you give me 1? No, I really can't do that. Well, why not? Well, I made a couple of calls in July, but, they didn't really pan out. So, I just assumed that this was a waste of time. And, we talked about this, and he actually had been dishonest in these meetings to our face, which led us to a situation where we really had to have a heart-to-heart with the whole company and say, what, we really cannot be doing this. We can't be getting bad results. We can't have a situation where we are expecting that certain things are going to be done and they're not. And honestly, it comes down to theft, don't you think, John?
Well, whatever. It makes us look bad because you would think on the surface that we haven't done our job, when in fact they haven't been making the sales calls. They haven't followed up on the leads they got.
Exactly. And in my opinion, the reason that I say theft is because they had spent thousands of dollars on the ebook and on prospecting activities and our time and everything else. And that amounted to nothing, and 3 months later, these leads are going to be stale. So, if somebody says that they are doing something and it turns out that they are not, that is not just dishonesty, that is also theft of opportunity, right? This was one of those times when we really learned a lot. And, you can say that you never lose, you either win or you learn. So we didn't chalk this up as a loss, we chalked this up as a learning experience. So, there are some intersections between sales and marketing that are really, really critical. And it's not always the salesperson's fault, if they are not making calls or if, whatever happens, because we didn't have a system in place to verify what was being done. We just said, put your notes into the CRM and everything else, but, no notes were getting in there. We assumed that, he was making calls, but just not getting a hold of people or just not having a favorable response. What we needed to change about the system was every single time the phone rang or every time he made a call, there should have been a notation in the CRM. So, we really needed to put a system in place to make sure that that happened. And so those accountability systems are really part of the marketing process. This is a lot harder than most people assume. And, people think this is an exaggeration, but it really isn't. And in the aviation industry, it's even worse. It takes more than 5 to 12 contacts to make a sale, which is the industry average. In some cases,
When you go back
for
and
very
look at the
high
marketing
tech
textbooks, they talk
or
about
high
positioning
ticket
products.
or complex products,
People
it can
don't
take
buy
years
a
to
product
make
or
a
service.
sale.
They're really looking for
Even
a
with
solution
respect,
to a
we
problem that they're having.
had to
So when people
had
hire
to get
ABCI,
new
it's not
drapes for
because
the
they
office
want a
and
brochure or a
eat
website or a trade show
people.
handled.
Mm-hmm.
What they're looking for is
I
to
had a
make more
discussion with one
sales.
particular
So
sales rep
we had
for
to go
draperies,
back. This was in 2012 that this whole
and
story
they were
happened,
saying,
and look at our
well, it
products
only
and
takes us
services
2 or
and
3
say, how
times. I
can we
said,
make it
no,
more
actually,
likely
if you'll
that
count
people that
every
use
time
our
that we've
products and
talked,
services will
we've
make more
already
sales?
exceeded
And the
5
only way to do it
times,
is to
and we don't have
involve
drapes yet.
the whole
Mm-hmm.
team,
We haven't even
sales
signed a
and
contract,
marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that
and
we
we
have
want the
got
stuff.
really
Exactly.
good education going
And those
on,
times are
really
not
good team
always
building
a
going
sales
on,
pitch or
and really good
elaborate
accountability
sales
systems
presentation. Sometimes that's a
being
phone
put
call.
in place
Sometimes that's an
and being bought
email
into by the whole
attempt to
team
make a
before we
schedule.
end up
Sometimes
in a
that is
conflict situation where we're
just
actually
didn't work
accusing
out for
somebody
whatever reason.
of
Let's
being
reschedule.
dishonest.
All
It
of
doesn't
those
have to get
things
to that
add to
point.
that
We
number
can
of touches
really make sure
and
that
that
everybody's
time.
on board
But the point
and
is
working
that
together
in
before we get
just about
started.
every industry,
And
and even
that's
worse
why
in the
we put
aviation
together
industry,
the Aviation
deals
Marketing
close
Master
when the
Class.
customer is ready, not when
We
you're ready.
involved
Absolutely.
Mike Ryan,
Exactly.
Mark
Which is why it's
Leeper,
important to
Mike
have that
Nicholson
nice
at
fat
Sandler Sales.
pipeline
We
full
got
of
involved
leads
with their
and to
President's
move them
Club
through in an organized sort of a way so that
sales
you have
training
some idea of
program
the
and a lot of other
probabilities of
things
when
to
these
make
things
sure
are
that we
going
were
to close
integrating all of
and
those
so on, because you
pieces
can't
so
count
that
on
we're
any
offering a
particular
complete
one
solution and not
closing.
just
But
marketing
if you
services,
know
but
that some
actually
percentage, 1 out of
getting
5,
to the
1 out
heart
of
of why
10,
people hire us.
whatever is going to close, then you have a better way of forecasting your revenue and everything else, right?
Yes.
So a lot of new clients come to us and say they need more leads when they really don't. They really don't have much of an idea of what's happening to the leads that they're getting now. And until we know what the problem is or where that process goes astray, we're not going to help them make more sales by getting more leads. We have another problem that we need to fix.
Okay. So, upcoming podcast. This was episode 16, talking about our frustrating cautionary tale, right? So, episode 17, we're going to talk about qualifying prospects. Episode 18, we're going to talk about selling to large organizations and infiltrating a corporate structure. Episode 19, we're going to talk about interactive sales presentations and how to make those really effective. So there is no new tip sheet this week, but we still have the 17 great calls to action available. If you go to aviationbusinessconsultants.com/CTAs, you can download that, and it has a number of different calls to action, including tip sheets, ebooks, videos, other things that you can do to get more leads, right? Okay, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and please do leave us a rating. Again, this is a fairly new podcast. We are almost to 1,000 downloads.
Wow.
So, tell your friends, bring any colleagues or anybody else that you think could benefit from aviation marketing hangar flying, and let them know, and get them to subscribe and leave us a rating as well. Thanks for joining us.
And we'll see you next time.
You could be larger than life.